Okay, guys, well, I have identified that some of these manuscript parables require some more in-depth discussion and for us to reflect more on what is being relayed here from these ancient Egyptian scrolls. And this parable in particular is very powerful because it relays to each soul the understanding that they are partakers in creation. And I have been speaking of this recently, how if we are aligned with creation, then we are partakers in creation. If we are aligned with the Antichrist establishment, and this means anything attached to the Antichrist establishment, such as education systems, such as careers, such as government, law, anything that we acknowledge as authentic from the Antichrist, then consciously shows creation that we are not aligned consciously with creation. This is reflected within a conscious soul, and this is why the principle of the mental universe says all is mental. And this means that each soul can be weighed consciously, can be weighed ethereally as to whether it is aligned with creation or it is going to work against creation. And therefore, when these souls partake in any act that is designed to inflict harm or destruction on creation, even ignorantly, they are aligning themselves with that is against the life force, that is against what is good and what is needed for creation to continue to exist in abundance. And so, unfortunately, this is what Rome and the New Age movement has taken away from mankind, and that is the truth that each soul is accountable for their actions and their protection of their creator and their mother. And when this soul turns their back on creator, and so in the New Age movement they have convinced people they are their own gods, and therefore the New Age movement has encouraged souls to turn their back on that which created them. And as such, they have consciously now shown the universe that they are not in alignment with creation. They are in alignment against creation because they have the belief that they can use creation to just manifest an existence that they require. And this is a misconception of man, because mankind are under larger influences, and even though at present in a physical state it may seem they can influence their environment, in truth they are insignificant to the larger cycles at hand, and we are soon to feel these cycles in a more pronounced way, which is why those of us that are seeking the knowledge and the understanding for these times we are now existing in are actually finding the knowledge and the understanding. And this is because the scriptures say, "Seek and ye shall find." Look for truth and truth can be found, but you must go and seek. And looking for truth and seeking information is not just listening to other people tell you truth. You have to go and seek it. You have to go and have an understanding for all the governing influences around you so that you can work within them rather than just listening to people tell you their beliefs. And so if you do seek an understanding, then you will find the information. You will be able to piece the puzzle back together because you're showing the intent. And when you do that, it is like the hidden hand or Hermes, Moses, some will call him, Thoth. It's the same symbolism, and it shows that if you are aligning yourself to a path where you want to find truth about who you are, and if you are doing it from the heart and from a place of truth and purity, you will be shown the way, and the path will come, to light. It will become available to you. You will see your path. And so this is a place where the soul must come from. It cannot come from a place of selfishness, of gain, of wanting to gain in any way other than only existing here for creation and for God and for Mother and Mother Earth and all that is good on Mother Earth. And so this requires strength. This requires battle. This requires violence. This requires bloodshed sometimes to fight for truth, to fight for what's right. However, people have been brainwashed to think that any action is only going to add to the violence that is already, currently occurring. However, this is part of the illusion that Rome has given them to feel this way, and so they remain inactive because they don't just want to add to the negativity. And so they fail to protect their creator, they fail to protect their divinity, and they fail to protect their mother, all in the delusion that they are doing something good. And this is where we think of the saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. But good intentions aren't enough. You have to protect what's good. And sometimes that does require to fight fire with fire. It doesn't always require this type of action at other times of the cycle. But at this time of the cycle, when your creator is under attack, when your divinity is under attack, you are required to stand up as a soul and fight for who you are and fight for your creator, and not be forced into feeling that you must feel somewhat less of a person because you believe in God and you believe in your creator. And so if people are still able to make you feel that way, you are not a free spirit. You have not actually found your divine nature once again, because once you do overcome that attachment to the collective and understand you are here individually as part of creation, you can step out of that and into your power. And this is why I've chosen the image of the lion for this parable, because it's the same as the lion on the strength card. And this is all about the inner beast that we have to conquer, because it's easy to fall to the carnal nature. It's easy to fall to the darker part of who we are, and especially in a time of physicality when we're required to find our strength because everyone is taking the easy path. You must conquer that beast within you, but you also must use the power of that beast because it's there for you to be tapped into. And this is why the divine man and woman are part of the symbolism that shows the beast, the bull, the lion, the eagle, because they do have access to this nature within themselves, and this is why the mythology also shows as they descend and lose their kingdoms, they fight. And this is what all of the samurai and the ninja and the Teutha Danann, the 10,000 immortals that fought with the Persians, this is all showing the warrior side of divine man. And so if divine man has a warrior side, then mortal man has a warrior side, because mortal men are an extension of divine man, and apart from being immortal, they can access the divinity within them through using divine man as an example to find their light, to find their heart, to find their power. But until a soul understands who they are, they will not find their power. They will continue to have the beast overpowering them, and they will be at the beast's mercy instead of themselves conquering the beast, which is why we see on the strength card, tarot card, that it's the jaws of the beast that have been clamped down, but not in a way that shows violence. It's just the power, the mental power of resisting the carnal nature. And a conscious being can do this. And a mortal who does this can find their inner divine nature and illuminate at the time of the cycle when the fifth element has returned and we are all back in our environment as a being. Because in truth, mankind as a being, both divine and mortal, are in their element and in their environment, in the ether. It is only when we fall into physicality, this is part of the cleansing after a cycle of all the incarnations, and all of the souls have then expanded and we have multiplied, and so at the end of that cycle the culling returns, and this ensures that creation can continue to exist and flourish in abundance. And so we are now coming to the part of the cycle that we are being tested. Mankind is being tested, and only those that have sought the right path and stayed true to themselves and true to God are going to see the beginning of another great year. The divine man, the 144 tribes, they will see the golden age and the beginning of the new great year, and so will the 10,000 elect, which are attached to the divine 144 tribes. They are called the elect within the 144,000 mortals that come through to the new cycle with the divine tribes and the elect. So this is what the ark symbolism is showing. The ark is the divine tribes and who they can take on their ark, and it is all based on weight of light in the heart, because the universe can measure on a conscious and ethereal level, and at certain times of the cycle this is what returns. This is what judgment is. This is what the weighing of the heart is. This is what Rome has hidden from you, because they didn't want you to know that you were accountable as a soul. This is why people are threatened by this information, because they believed what Rome told them, because the devil doesn't tell you what you don't want to hear, or he wouldn't be evil and dangerous. He is evil and dangerous because he tells you what you want to hear. And so you follow him believing that he's telling you the truth. And this is the error of mankind, because they have not gone and sought out the information for themselves, and they have not gone and sought out an understanding for themselves. Very few do. And so the very few that do are those that have not turned their back on creation, not turned their back on the Creator, even though they were the little fish swimming upstream against all of the other fish who were swimming downstream, calling them names on the way, flicking them in the head as they're going past. But no, the little fish just keeps going upstream because his heart is telling him to go upstream, because he knows it's right, even though it's easier. It's easier just to turn around and let himself go downstream with all the other fish. But the strong little fish won't do that. They'll continue on up the stream against everything, and they'll do it because they're doing it for the right thing that is in their heart, and because of that, that's what gives them the strength to continue. And that's what allows them to make the journey. And you will find that as you are making this journey, even though it is difficult, when you are in truth, speaking for truth, when everyone else is not, you do find the strength. You do find the way to allow you to move through all of that negativity in a way that doesn't actually influence your journey. When you have an understanding for who you are as a soul, when you know that in your heart and you are strong in who you are in your heart, you do not require anybody to tell you who you are. You do not require acceptance from anybody. But this is why you only understand this when you go and seek the knowledge. If you don't go and seek the knowledge, you won't understand this, and you will think that you do require acceptance, because that is what Rome has taught us. Even with research, peer-reviewed, all about acceptance, acceptance. You know, this is why such evil has been allowed to flourish, because people can hide behind the image of the loving family that go to church every Sunday and appear to be the good Christian family, and behind closed doors, the husband's an alcoholic, molesting his daughter, bashing his wife. This is something we all know happens, and this is because people have been brainwashed to believe appearance is truth, and this is actually the opposite, because truth is always beneath appearance, and so you have to look deeper into everything until you find the truth, and not just look at the appearance of what truth is, even though that is easier to take that way. And so let's look at this parable, and then we can explain the information that is being relayed in this parable. The truly awakened soul is beyond carnal lust and mortal grief. His love is alike for all my creation, and thus he shows supreme love for me. By this love alone he knows me in truth, who and what I am, and knowing me in truth he participates in my whole being. Those who seek union with me must first prepare a dwelling place for me in their hearts. But those who are not pure, those who do not fight for me, those who have not suffered under the discipline of love, and those without wisdom cannot attain union, no matter how much they strive. I am the God of illumination. I am the God of enlightenment. The Kolbrin manuscripts. And this parable is basically what I have just been speaking about. That the awakened soul is beyond being controlled by the more carnal side of his nature, even though that is on, ready display and there for the taking for mankind in this very physical part of the cycle. It is the conscious soul that understands he must move beyond that part of his nature to stay as the conscious soul, because it is the unconscious man that allows that side of his nature to govern him. And it goes on to say that the awakened soul also loves all creation. And so those that can partake in the meat industry and not show love for creatures that are being used horribly as a commodity and as food, then you have to understand that on a conscious level to the universe you are partaking in destruction. So this isn't about being a vegetarian as opposed to being a meat eater. This is about aligning yourself with what is true, and this is not to say that eating meat is not something that can be done in alignment, but presently in the way that the meat industry has evolved, it is not in the interests of creation to partake in the meat industry. And so this is the difference between a warrior hunting for food and lazy mortal man having food supplied to him in the supermarket by the Antichrist, because that is basically what it breaks down to. And again, the Antichrist, anyone that's against the Christ light in you, that wants to extinguish the Christ light in you. Yeah, so partaking in the meat industry as it stands, I don't think is something that is really aligned with creation. However, this is something that each soul has to decide for themselves. Now, then it goes on to say that love for me, by this love alone, he knows me in truth, who and what I am, and knowing me in truth, he participates in my whole being. Now this is relating to having an understanding for who you are. You have an understanding for your place in the universe. You have an understanding for your responsibility as being a soul manifest here as part of creation. And you have an understanding for your creator and a love for your creator, because you do see a divine nature within everything. And this brings it back to having a love for all creation, because you do see the divine manifest in all creation when you have an understanding for truth and an understanding for who you are. And goes on to say, those who seek union with me must first prepare a dwelling place for me in their hearts. So if you want union at the end of the cycle, when we return to source before the rebirth into a new cycle and the new great year, then you must have a love for creation, a love for God, a love for your creator. And it is known on a conscious level. It is known on an ethereal level. That is why it's called the weighing of the hearts, because your heart can be weighed. It can be known by the universe, by consciousness, because remember, it's a mental universe. It can be known that you are either here to partake in creation and be in alignment, or you are not. And here where it goes on to say, and knowing me in truth, he participates in my whole being. This has been a conscious partaker of creation rather than working against creation and not actually standing for abundance and standing for expansion. So again, more confirmation that it is about the soul participating in creation as a conscious soul and here for the good of creation, always. Then it goes on to say, those who seek union with me must first prepare a dwelling place for me in their hearts. But those who are not pure, those who do not fight for me, and those who have not suffered under the discipline of love, and those without wisdom cannot attain union, no matter how much they strive. And so it is about just knowing who you are, and due to that knowledge, that wisdom, you have a love for creation. You have a love for your creator. You fight for your Creator and you fight for creation because you do have that understanding of who you are. You do have an understanding for your divine nature and your responsibility to creation. And so these are the attributes that a soul needs to ascend. And ascend, when we hear about ascension and rapture, this is all the symbolism that is connected to judgment and weighing of the heart. And again, we see that it has been manipulated by the modern New Age movement and by the religious institutions run by the Antichrist. And people do not understand that everything is written in their heart. No priest can take away what is written in your heart, and no amount of meditating, no amount of visiting any yogi and listening to a yogi or listening to a priest will change the weight of light in your heart. In fact, listening to incorrect knowledge is taking away from the light, is extinguishing the light. And this is what the Antichrist want. They want to extinguish your light. They are against your light. They are anti your light. And so they do not want you to have union again with the Creator at the end of the cycle, before the rebirth into the new great year. They do not want you to attain that union. So this is why wisdom gives us an understanding of who we are as a divine soul, and therefore their lies cannot manipulate us to looking elsewhere for our greatness, or elsewhere for the greatness in creation, because it's all within. But the church would have us looking outside of ourselves, waiting for a saviour. And even though the divine race will illuminate and be returned to their glory, and in that glory will have the power to regain a balance and justice, they will not return and then all those that were at church are somehow going to, be shown a path back to God. This is not in alignment with what the information shows. When the divine illuminate, it is not to save man from himself. Man has to save himself from himself. That is where the responsibility lies. There is no return of a saviour through the clouds to elevate people out of their misery. And this is again the Roman delusion, programming the flock just to sit on their hands and wait for a saviour, when each soul was responsible for themselves. Each soul was a conscious partaker in creation, in God's experience. So people need to understand that you cannot turn your back on the divine nature within creation for a prolonged period of time. There will be a time where that will no longer be supported, and we are moving into that time. And so these are the times that we use this knowledge to prepare the soul, and so that we can attain union. And we're not just listening to some guru talking about ascension or DMT with mushrooms having anything to do with enlightenment. And enlightenment is also the same symbolism as ascension and rapture. And if you look at enlightenment in the Hindu texts, it speaks of a physical death when you are once again rejoined back in the crown with Source. When you reach the crown, you experience a physical death. This is what the Hindu texts say, but this is not what the modern New Age movement relates to those that follow and listen to the modern New Age movement. They do not relate that you have to experience a physical death for enlightenment. You can enlighten yourself consciously through knowledge, and you can elevate yourself consciously. However, enlightenment in the context that it is used in the texts is the same as ascension and rapture. It is about re-merging with union, having union again with the Creator. This is also what the bridal chamber is relating to, and marriage. This reunion again with our divine Creator before the new great year cycle. And it goes on to say, I am the God of illumination, and I am the God of enlightenment. And so to illuminate, you have to be enlightened. And when God returns, when his influence returns to foundation, we experience illumination. And God's influence can't always be on foundation. It's just like the seasons. It's just like the moon. How the moon and the light on the moon waxes and wanes. Well, think of the light of our Creator and his influence on foundation. The same way, the waxing and waning. And this is why when God leaves and his influence leaves, we are left responsible for the garden, so to speak, in the symbolism, in the allegory. And however, he does return, and there's been a party while he has been absent. But this is part of the cycle, and this is part of where the wheat and the chaff are sorted. And this is why we fall into this unconscious part of the cycle, so the wheat and chaff can be sorted. And so God's influence returns once again to foundation through the divine race. This is how God is known to all, through the divinity within mankind and through the divine race, which is why they are also known as gods on earth, because they have the influence of the Creator. And when their illumination has returned, then we are in a time of enlightenment once again. And this is a never-ending cycle that we continue to exist within. Just like the tide goes in and out, so does the consciousness of man rise and fall. So does the memory of who he is. And that memory is returning now. And these manuscripts are helping put the pieces back together. So I hope that has helped enlighten you somewhat to this parable. And I will leave it there. And as always, peace out.